This is Flat Out Agility, an Australian agility podcast. I'm Grace. In this episode, I'm joined by agility trainer Maria Thiry of Red Dog Agility, and we're going to talk about raising puppies for agility. So to start us off, Maria, can you tell us about your experience in agility?
I've been doing agility since the 2000, so quite a long time now. When we started pretty quickly, we also started a club together. So my husband and I started agility together, and then the ADAR actually asked us to help a club in our area start out. So that was in 2001. We started the Brisbane Agility Dog Club back then. So we were kind of thrown into the deep end of being able to instruct and all of that sort of stuff pretty quickly. And then pretty soon after, I'm just trying to think when because I was instructing at the club for a few years and then I started teaching privately myself. So then I started wanting to do that as a business, teaching privately. So over the years, I've trained 10 dogs to various levels of agility. So some of them retired early due to injury and stuff. But I've had 4 agility champions within ADA, not ANKC. And then my husband ran some dogs as well. So, but he doesn't really do agility anymore. So it's not really his thing anymore. So, yeah, that's kind of my background.
So we're talking about puppies today. So can you tell us about your latest puppy, who is, I believe, called Meg?
Yes. So Meg is 6 months now. She's a border collie, and she is the busiest border collie I've ever had, and I've had a lot of them. But she's very fun. She's very sweet, and she's very smart. So she's learning all the things really quickly. She's just been more difficult in home life than most of my other dogs. But I might have forgotten what a border collie is like too. There's also that because I hadn't had a border collie for 10 years. So we had 2 dogs in between, which was Bright the Coolie and Brilliant the Aussie Shepherd. And so I've had those 2 puppies in between. So there's a chance I forgot how a border collie puppy was, maybe. But she just seems harder work to get to settle. She's a baby. She's getting better all the time, but she's just been more complicated to get to settle in the house and not be destructive. She's quite destructive. But she's a good girl. We're really enjoying her.
I can relate. My puppy, she's almost 3 now, but she was my most difficult puppy, half border collie, and yeah, I can absolutely relate. She was very destructive little puppy, a bit.
Thinking back, I do think that the border collies are more chewers than other dogs. So, like, they're more likely to destroy your furniture easily and all that sort of stuff, which I had kind of forgotten, I think. My other 2, they did chew the odd thing, but it was nowhere near as much as a border collie, I don't think. But she's also more OCD than, and I know all border collies can have that OCD tendency, but she just seems a little bit extra. So she would have been challenging for a first timer, that's for sure, but it hasn't worried me too much. Just got to try and find ways to get her to calm down. So it's been interesting.
So let's start from the beginning. When you're looking for a puppy for agility, what kind of qualities or traits are you looking for?
Mostly, I just want a puppy that wants to interact with people. So I'm not too fussy about finding the perfect puppy because there's no such thing exists. But the ones I don't choose are the ones that are running away and hiding. That's obviously a clear sign that they are very nervous. I also have a look at what the parents are like, and because that gives you a really good indication. If you can see both parents, it's even better. But so I don't need the puppy to be like always wanting to be with the people and like super. I don't care if they're a bit independent and do their own thing, but I just want a puppy that's going to run up and say hi and all that sort of stuff. And I also am very fussy about structure and movement because you can't fix that stuff with fitness training. So I'm also qualified canine fitness trainer, and there are things you can do to help when they have bad structure, but it's always going to be detrimental to their agility career. So Bright, for example, is a coolie, and they're very straight in their front end compared to their back end usually, and that's been an issue. So I've done less training with her because I know she doesn't have the give in her body because she doesn't bend her front end as easily as a dog that has more angulation in the front. And so I also have to do a lot of work to make sure she doesn't get tight through her shoulders and her neck. So all of that just means extra work for me. And also I worry about it, whether they're going to be okay or not when they're not got the good structure. So I do pay attention to that side of things. How they move really makes a big difference to how they're going to go. Also want them to do toy play. So I want a dog that's happy to play with a toy. Most puppies do, but some are more into it than others. I do tend to go for the crazy ones. Probably shouldn't, but I just like a fast, fun dog. So I don't want a dog that I'm going to have to motivate. I want the dog to be pretty motivated straight out of the box. So a dog that wants to come play tug with me and all that sort of stuff is key. Meg was I was choosing her from, I think there was 5 females that I could choose from. And they all no, sorry, they weren't all. There was 2 that were very friendly. She was one, and there was another one that was more friendly and stayed closer to me, and she was probably a better pick for a dog that would personality-wise, she was probably better to pick, but she didn't have as good movement and structure. So, Meg was a bit more independent and a bit more she'd come and say hi. She'd play all the time, but then she'd be off, like, roaming. She's has this really weird tendency to wanna try and escape wherever she is. So in the puppy pen, she'd be trying to look for a way out, which, I see that happen when we take her to, someone's place, a new person's place. She's trying to work out how to get out of the yard and all that sort of stuff. So she, for some reason, wants to go off into the big wide world. So personality-wise, she's a bit harder because she doesn't want to interact with me as much, and she does once we're training, but it just is not natural for her to want to be, and I think that's the sheep herding in her. They don't as a as a dog, they're not meant to really interact with the handler as much as work away from the handler and bring the stock to the handler and all that sort of stuff. So it's just a natural herding tendency, but it's not as helpful in agility.
On the structure and movement side, can you describe maybe some things that you're looking for in those early stages of, I mean, they're only 8 weeks old, really.
So I basically watch how they trot. So if they have nice floating trot and their top line stays nice and even and they're not like bunny hopping everywhere, then that shows that they are pretty nice structurally. You can kind of tell straighter front ends because they don't bend their elbows so easily when they're so for example, when Bright was a puppy, she when she'd go to eat out of a bowl, she wouldn't just bend her elbows and eat out of a bowl. She would actually put her legs out sideways like a giraffe and bend down and eat out of a bowl. So little things like that are hints that they just don't have the ability to bend their front end as well as a dog that has a bit more angulation and stuff. But it is mostly about seeing how nicely they can trot. Does it look clunky or does it look floaty and, like, really nice and, like there's no effort to the trot, if that makes sense? That's, mostly what I'm looking for.
That's really interesting. It's interesting to hear from, your background in canine fitness that's what you're looking for, which would probably other people wouldn't know so much.
Yeah, and the other thing is if you see them, playing with toys and stuff, what you really wanna see is that nice push off, their rear end, so that means they're gonna have a nice push off for jumping. So when they go to pounce on a toy or something like that, or say there's a little bed or something and they are jumping up onto the bed, how effortlessly do they do that? Or is it like they tried to do it and then they're splattered? That tells you how much strength they're gonna have in their rear end and how I mean, sometimes it is as simple as they need an adjustment from a person too. So I take my dogs to get treated by people, and puppies are constantly, they play with each other and they smash each other. And so they do sometimes just need minor adjustments. But generally speaking, if they can push off their rear really nicely when they're jumping up on something, that's a good sign that they are going to have a good push into jumps and stuff like that as well, which is helpful.
And I mean, that leads right into my next question, which is like, how much do you think success and agility comes from the genetics versus the upbringing?
Genetics, I think it's hard to change genetics. It's pretty hardwired into them. So you can do things in training to try to fix things a little bit, but it's such a hardwired thing in them that it's really, I try to work with the dog more than against them, if that makes sense. So I'm going to use Meg's toy retrieve at the moment as an example. So she, again, this is all part of her wanting to be away and work stock. She finds it really hard to bring a toy close to me. And if she does eventually bring it to me, she will spit it out at my feet, not put it in my hand. And I've done everything I've done with every other puppy to try and get a toy retrieve happening. And she has just been more difficult. And it is just literally that she feels the pressure of being close to a person much harder than other dogs. So I'm just trying to find little ways to try and fix that. I also do think it's very important for a dog to come in close when we do agility sometimes. We don't always want them to be away from us. It will be a problem if she doesn't want to come close to me. So I need to reward coming close to me as much as possible. But I need to realize genetically it's hardwired into her to just be away a little bit more. So that will be helpful for some things and then not helpful for other things. So I think it will be the same also as genetically if the parents were crazy agility dogs and they smash things and then you get a puppy from that, it's more than likely that the puppy is going to be crazy in their mind as well. So it just, yeah, genetics plays a huge part. Brilliant, the Aussie Shepherd, he is from a litter of 10 puppies, so that's a lot of puppies. And then about 7 or 8 of them do agility, and the amount of things that I see all of them do is kind of weird. Like, and some of them, it's things that you wouldn't even think would be genetic, and off the top of my head, I can't think of them right now, but there are just some behaviors that they do that you go, "You can't believe that that's a genetic trait that every one of those dogs have." So, but they're yeah, and so Brill also is very, very noisy because he's an Aussie Shepherd. I thought I could train him not to be noisy, and there is no chance in hell I can train him not to be noisy. As soon as he gets excited, he just cannot help but have it come out of his mouth. So that's another genetic trait that I could not fight with training. So I think I think unique genetics play a huge part in my mind. Training can help fix things, but they never really fix things in my mind. You're fighting against them, kind of what their true natures are. So knowing what the parents do is kind of helpful. It was hard with Meg because both of her parents are not agility dogs. So I was just their cattle herding dogs or whatever. And I didn't really know them. They were just local. So I got to go see the puppies a lot, which was good. I got to see the parents, but I have no idea what they'll be like in agility because there are no previous agility dogs. But I did look at traits that they had, which were they were friendly with people, which, is very beneficial. They weren't worried or scared of people. And they had no structure. So both of those things that were good for me. But yeah, I don't know anything else about how they'll be with agility because I've not seen previous.
Yeah, I would agree. That's been my experience that, I haven't had that many agility dogs, but I have a Papillon who doesn't come from agility. Like she's the first agility dog in the family. So it's taking that risk, I guess, to try it. And yeah, so she did well in training, but she doesn't have the temperament for trialing. And I think my level of skill can't bring her there. So that upbringing side is for me is never going to get there when her genetics are potentially what's holding her back a little bit. Like I think there's levels of some people can probably get more out. Like you being a fitness coach as well, you can probably get more structurally than other people might.
Yes, this is true. Like if someone doesn't know what to work on to make a dog stronger, like a dog like Bright would have broken probably a couple of years ago because they didn't know what to do with her. But like temperament as in nervousness and worried about the world, that one is really hard to train out, I think. Even if you do all the socialization in the world, you can actually ruin it with socialization if you do it wrongly. So it can be hard. Like has just recently gone through a big fear period where she was really great with meeting people and suddenly she decided people were scary and she didn't want to go up and talk to them, and if they came near her she'd be ducking away. Now she's not doing anything bad, she's not barking, biting, all of that sort of stuff, so that's good, but she's showing a fear from them. So I have to be careful that I don't try and push that now because I'm pushing it when she's actually scared of stuff. So we just try to ease off it a little bit and then take her into it when she's not in that fear period. But trying to train nervousness out of a dog is kind of a really hard thing to do unless they love agility. enough to override whatever the other thing is. You can have like a nervous border collie that loves agility will forget about it when they're doing agility, but you won't have that with a dog that's not so driven for agility itself, so it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's go back to we've selected our puppy. So when
Yes.
we bring a puppy home with a mind to doing agility in future, where do you start first?
So the main thing is to let them settle into the house first up. In the past, I've had way too many dogs. We had 6 dogs at one time, so the puppy was coming into, like, a 5-dog household, which is a lot for them. So you just try to make it as easy as possible. That's a difficult scenario for most puppies. But then, as soon as I've got them settled in, I just kinda hang out with them a lot in a pen, me hanging out, and we just do the first kind of few days where we're just kind of together a lot, and I'm sitting on the floor and I'm, playing with them, feeding them, all that sort of stuff, cuddling with them, and just trying to work on relationship and play is kind of the first things that I try to work on, and, so here's the other thing, it would depend on who raised the puppy before, but has the puppy been taught to even take food out of your hand? Because that can be a skill that they just don't understand at all when they first come to your house. So if they've been raised by people who do training and that sort of stuff, then they will have done it. But otherwise, that's a first step. They need to learn to follow your hand and eat food is like a hard thing to start with. And then I also need to work out their their reward hierarchy. So do they like food more? Do they like toys more? And try to bring that to kind of not necessarily even because they'll always have a preference, but I try to make it as even as I possibly can so I can use both. And many working dogs, which is what I tend to go for, aren't super food motivated. So it's a bit of a challenge initially to so Meg definitely was not super into food. I had to make it a game for her initially. And but was always into toys. So that part was easy with her. Yeah, those are my first focus things that I do, relationship and play, just making sure that the puppy thinks that all the best things come from me. I also try to keep them all not away from my other dogs. Like if I've got dogs that are good with puppies, I do let them spend some time, but I don't want them to bond with my other dogs more than they bond with me, which would be very easy to happen because my other dogs are much more fun and exciting than I am. and they and they're obviously more drawn to another dog than they are to a person. So it can be really easy to lose your relationship with them if you let them hang out with the other dogs all the time. But I do want a little bit of a balance of them learning to get to know each other in a kind of structured way. So it's a little bit of time with the other dogs, but not so much that they become obsessed with them.
And so when you start introducing sort of more agility specific skills, what does that look like?
It depends what you mean by agility specific, but I pretty much start some of them from the moment they're able to. So once they've learned rewards and markers and stuff like that, then I move on to things that are a bit agility specific, like focus forward. So I teach focus forward pretty early on with toys and throwing a piece of food and look at the thing and you're going to drive to the thing. So those types of ones and even following handling, so following me while I move around, that gets taught really early. And then I anything to do with like equipment and stuff, I don't start till they're about 8 months old with some things. And, I'm doing, like, little bits with Meg now, so she's done a few tunnels, and she's starting to learn wing wraps and that, but that's only just started now at about 6 months old, and that would be dependent on how they're going physically. So, I wouldn't wanna be wing wrapping a dog if they were uncoordinated. I would want them to have the coordination skills to be able to do that if they wanted to do it at a speed, because it becomes a problem when they're going fast. If they're going steady, it's not such a big deal. And then things like jumps, I start to work on jumps. I might do low jumps from about 10 months old and build up. I'm a bit torn on the jumping. So in the past, I've always taken jumping from low to high very quickly, but I haven't done any jumps until they were 12 months old. So, Brill was the last puppy I raised, and so he didn't do any jumping. So if I was doing sequencing with him, it would have been with no bars and just running between the wings, and he didn't have to jump anything. Because I did have a thought personally that low jumping can cause a problem with early takeoff. So if your dog doesn't take off evenly over the bar on a low jump, it's really easy when it's on low. And if they learn that and pattern that and then go to full height, then you end up with a dog that's taking off in the wrong spot. That's a problem. So, and I have seen it with overseas instructors who are most of the overseas instructors do start low and build up. And I've seen some of the dogs not have a nice even takeoff when they do that. And so with Brill, I just basically did low to high very quickly, single jump exercises, teaching him how to do that. Use his body in different ways and go from there. Now I've kind of been a bit more influenced by Ivona Golub from Poland. So I really love the exercises that she does for jumping and stuff. She does a lot of plyometric type exercises for that. And she does do low jumps, but I think I would just be very mindful of how the puppy is taking off as soon as we start, is in extension. Is the puppy doing a nice takeoff spot, or are they too far away, too close? And then I think I would work on that first before I then started to move through the heights on the jumps. But, this is what I'm saying. You think you have something sorted, and then another dog comes along and shows you didn't have it sorted. So I think it's about just kind of playing around and seeing what works. But I don't really love them jumping low heights for too long. But on the complicated stuff, I think that you don't want them to be on full height for moves like threadles and push to the backs early. So it's a little bit tricky as to how to do it. We'll see how I go with Meg. I've not really decided just yet how I'm going to do that. It's going to just be what she does. She's shown a tendency to take off too far away when she jumps up on a couch or something. So jumping onto the couch, or like I've got a plyometric box in the fitness room that's 450 high. When she's running, and she sometimes launches a long way from there to get onto it. So I just have to pay attention to how she's try to pattern her not to do that right from the beginning. When I start jumps, have her take off kind of already, like make it obvious to her where she should be taking off, and try to set her to be right from the beginning rather than just letting her do it however she feels, because sometimes they don't do it right. I had the opposite problem with Brill. He took off too close to jumps in extension, which was difficult for him when it got to full height, because he would end up too close to the jump and be pulling himself up. So as I said, all different. So you just have to play around and see how you go. But weaving I don't do till the very end. So I definitely don't weave a dog until 16 months old. I might start to teach some of the entry work only, which is 3 poles and just teaching them how to find their entries. But I don't do any weaving until they're 16 months. And that would be dependent on how coordinated they were with their bodies. And A-frame, once the A-frame was just going to full height, I wouldn't want that till the end either, because there's a lot of impact with the A-frame.
So on that topic then, how do you approach conditioning for puppies?
Conditioning I do right from the beginning. So I start to teach them to target their feet on things, and try to teach them good sits, good drops, good standing positions right from the word go. So that it's the same as agility. I want them to have the foundations for fitness pretty early on, and try to help them have the best posture and everything right from early on. Because you often see puppies, and Meg was really bad for this actually, sitting on their side and slouching. So they do that really yucky slouchy sit. And so you want to try to get that out of them as quickly as possible and teach them how to use their bodies in a much better way. And then also coordination of where their feet are, which is helpful for agility. And also Meg was a floppy puppy. So what I mean by that is just very bendy, very she didn't have a lot of muscle, which, puppies don't have muscles, but some have more muscles than others. Like, it's just genetically again. So Brill was actually a stronger puppy than Meg was. But I think that she's a bit more fluid in how she moves, a bit more slinky and stuff. So I think it's partly that, but I definitely wanted to try and build some muscle to protect those joints for the crazy stuff she wants to do with her body because she's running around like a silly sausage and slipping and all and stuff. And so I need her to be as strong as possible while she's doing those silly things.
So, what kind of activities might you be doing to build that sort of coordination and strength early on?
So I have got foundation exercises I do in the fitness room, but then I also take my dogs to the park. So she's been at the park off lead right from the beginning and just free running. So not running with the other dogs. Like initially, she was just running on her own. And then once I thought she might be okay, I tried it with one of the other dogs just to see. If she was too chasey with the other dogs early on, I probably would have just done single again for a while until I know I've got good recall off the other dogs and all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't be running it with the other dogs. I also don't run it with Brill because the Aussie Shepherd likes to run into and run over the top of her. So we did that a couple of times and then I went, we won't be doing that anymore. So yeah, she's just running at the park and also just lots of getting on things. Like if you have places where you take them for a walk, it has to be height appropriate for the puppy because you don't want them up too high. But the rule of thumb is if they can jump up onto something, then they can jump off it. So if they had to climb on something and climb up, then they shouldn't be jumping off it. So I did have a puppy break his leg when he was a baby jumping off a bed. So they've got very soft bones, and if they, so I'm always a bit paranoid about them getting up on something high and then leaping off if they're brave. So not all puppies will do it, but Meg definitely was quite happy to just launch off of the height of anything. So I had to be careful with her and make sure she didn't climb up on the couch and then try to jump off the back of it and that sort of thing.
And so, going back at the beginning where you focused on reinforcement or you focus on play, what is your approach to building those reinforcement skills?
So I use location specific markers. So that is a word that tells the dog how you are going to get your reinforcement. And I have different ones for food and toys because if your dog has a preference for one, you don't want them to be disappointed if you had the same marker for food and toys and they really like one thing and not the other, then they might be disappointed when they don't get the one they want. So, the other reason I use these markers is that I find it's really good for teaching them verbal discrimination. So, in agility, especially now, there's a lot more verbals in agility than there used to be. And also, we're discriminating stuff all the time when we run around an agility course. So it's helpful if the dog is listening while they are doing agility. So it's helpful that you test it with rewards because they can be super excited. So, for example, toy dogs that are really excited about their toys, if they can't think about toys, they're probably not going to be able to think when they're out doing agility. So if I can make them thoughtful with toys and listening to what I'm saying, then that can be helpful in agility as well. And then lastly, I really like having it because it can help regulate their feelings. So if I have a dog that's getting too crazy, I can use the markers that actually keep them a bit calmer and make them have a bit more self control. So one of the ones that I use is catch, which means wait where you are and the toy is going to be thrown to you. And that one makes them actually settle and be calm for a moment and it actually helps to bring their arousal down. And then if I had a dog that needed the opposite, I could use markers that made them feel more excited and more chasey. So I could use like food chasing or toy chasing, and that would help them feel a bit more excited. So I use them to actually teach them to be able to come up in arousal and down in arousal, but I can also help regulate wherever they're feeling, whatever they're feeling in the moment. I do find that a dog knowing where the reward is going to be can help make that behavior be reinforced just that little bit more. So I'm going to use stays as an example. If I do sit stays and I've taught my dogs catch means stay where you are and I'm going to throw a toy back to you, then when I walk out and I say catch, the dog has to have the self control to sit there, wait until the toy is brought out and thrown. Once it's out of my hand, they're allowed to kind of pop out of position a little bit and wait for the toy to come to them, but they are not allowed to get out of position when I say the word catch. So that just helps them have that little bit of self control, but also they know the reward is coming back to them. The reward is not come forward to me. So it just helps reinforce back where they are. And I can use that same one for a two on, two off contact. Run down into a two on, two off contact position. I say catch, you should stay there in position. Toy will come flying back to you. And it just can help reinforce it a bit better than if I was releasing them forward to me to a toy. And if I had the same word for all of those things, that wouldn't be as clear either. It just helps to add to that reinforcement of where it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that I think it is the sort of best method for just general dog training personally, but yeah, it is does translate really well to agility when you've got different expectations in different parts of the course or different skills.
Yes, and I also so for over aroused dogs, I had a very over aroused dog. He was my last border collie that I trained in agility. He was the reason I learned all of these things from on Fenzi. I learnt through Sarah Stremming and Sarah Brewski, and so he learned all of that. I could tell that they actually helped him to calm down a little bit, knowing having like something that was telling him how he was getting the reward just helped him not be so frantic about how he was going to get it. But on top of that, I've also come up with a system for over aroused dogs where when you're waiting outside the ring or something, and this can be good for any level dogs, it doesn't matter whether they're over aroused or they might be nervous dogs. You can still do these same games. But I'm doing reward marker games with a perch outside the ring, and the dog is having to think and concentrate on me and not worry about all the things that are happening around them. So in the past, I probably would have done tricks, but I just feel like when they interact with the perch, it just gives them something to put their feet on. And for some reason, it just kind of grounds them a little bit more and gives them something to focus on a bit more. And then we play those games and check that they're listening while, someone's doing agility. Can you still pay attention? Or have you lost your mind and you can't? And if not, we won't be going into the ring. But once they have that little pattern, they normally are paying attention anyway. And I find that's helpful little games, like basically pattern games that I can do in an environment that's harder, and I can get them to kind of into a thinking headspace because of it.
That's right. I mean, it's a sort of a common thought these days where, like, if they can't take reinforcement in the environment, we can't really expect them to do much else.
No, exactly. And Keen definitely, if I tried to give Keen food around agility, he would most often spit it out. So he was definitely one of those over dogs. And Meg will be a little bit that way. So she has shown me at the park when I'm doing toy stuff, I sometimes give her a piece of food and often it just falls back out of her mouth. So she's showing me that she has that tendency. So I need to make sure I get these games like really good without the difficulties of agility around her. And before she's learnt how exciting it is and how much fun it's going to be, so that she can just like snap into it straight away without any drama.
So thinking about all of these different puppies you've raised and your current puppy, what would you say are sort of the skills that make the biggest difference in sort of the future success perhaps in agility?
I do think focus forward is the biggest one. I've done it a little bit, but I haven't probably put enough into it. Bright did a little bit of focus forward games when she was young, and she definitely learnt all those games. But then I didn't really kind of grow it anymore. So then she became very like check in with me in between obstacles and stuff. So Brill is a lot better at that because he was taught a bit more. He was taught focus forward means stay looking, not just flick and look, which a lot of my previous dogs, I accepted if they looked at the obstacle, but then flicked back at me when we were doing like our start line stuff. And Brill was a bit more, I don't know if it was naturally him or whether I taught it better. I don't actually know. With Meg, I've been more mindful of how to teach this, but he definitely is much better at just looking at the first obstacle and not doing the head check-in thing. So, which has meant he's a bit better at staying on his line and stuff. So the focus forward thing has probably been the biggest one, and Meg has been taught that right from the beginning, and I'm also teaching her to be able to do it without having to stare at something. So it's all well and good if they can look at a toy or something, which is what Bright can do. If there is a toy there, she can look at it. But as soon as the toy is not there, she's going, "Oh my god, where's the toy? Oh my god!" And she gets all like kind of antsy about where the toy is and when am I going to get the toy kind of thing. So with Meg, I've definitely taught her to focus forward without the toy out in front, and then I will give her the cue and the toy goes over her head while she drives forward, and that's gonna, be the start of ours. So that will definitely be something that I, think put a bit more effort into. And the other thing is jumping. So over the years, I've had a lot of dogs that have been so excited about agility, they haven't really cared whether they knocked bars or not. And, I've had varying levels of that. And I find that one of the most frustrating things is like you run a really nice course and you have 1 or 2 bars down. So with Meg, I'm definitely teaching her right from the start how important it is to not touch things because she is going to be high drive. She's shown with a toy that she's crazy and she sometimes slams into a wall and stuff. So there's not a lot of self preservation there either. Some dogs have a lot of self preservation, so they would never touch anything because they don't want to. But she definitely doesn't have that. So that would be something I definitely put a lot of time and effort into. Some plyometric drills that she is also knows that she's not meant to touch any of the obstacles. So not the wing, not the bar, nothing. You're allowed to jump over and be crazy, but no touching. So that'll be another thing that I'll be focusing on with her.
And can you just, for people that aren't familiar with fitness, define this word that you've used now twice, plyometric? Like, what does that mean?
Yes. Plyometric is a jumping. So, the drills you see like soccer players doing where they're jumping over little low things to keep and then jumping up and down off boxes and hopping off boxes. Anything with jumping impact is basically what you're doing. And so there's plyometric drills you can do with the dogs that help them to have a bit more spring and that like push out of their body that they don't normally have. Also, anything plyometric actually helps to strengthen bones. It helps to strengthen ligaments and tendons. Like as we get older, the reason our bones get weaker is because we don't jump as much as we used to when we were kids. Agility is actually plyometric in itself. Do you know what I mean? Just doing an agility course is a plyometric exercise. But you want to do something that's a bit smarter and not so much impact on their bodies. So there's a lot of different games you can play these days. There's a variety of people that are doing it, and it's available in my Red Dog Squad. I constantly adding videos of me and my dogs doing different games with this stuff.
And it's useful for people to have a definition, and then they can go and find, other resources as well, knowing what
Yes,
they're actually looking for.
yes.
So what would you say are the biggest lessons that your puppies have taught you over the years?
There's so many, honestly. But I would say one of the main things, this happens when I'm teaching other people as well, is to pay attention when your dog gives subtle signs that pressure is affecting them. So that can be handler pressure. It can be pressure from the exercise that you're trying to do. It can be pressure from the difficulty of what you're doing. Um, and they all give really subtle signs within their body language that they're dealing with that or not. I'm just going to give an example of when you're trying to get a puppy to tug, but it doesn't want to tug. I don't think people realize how much your physical actions can actually affect tugging. So they might get their dog tugging as well. So when I teach tugging, I prefer to let go of the toy more than hold the toy. Tugging for me is not dog and me on a toy. It is dog and me on a toy briefly and then dog winning the toy. But then you have the problem if the dog doesn't bring the toy back that you don't want to let go of the toy. Then you're putting a lot of pressure on tugging because the dog never wins. You're always tugging with them and taking the toy off them. So then the dog might be like, well, why do I bother tugging? Because I never win this thing. And then what I find some people do is because they're worried their dog is going to leave them, they will play tug with their puppy and then they will grab the puppy before they take the toy off the puppy. The grabbing of the puppy then makes the puppy want to not play with you anymore because they go, I'm going to be grabbed. I don't want to be manhandled and I'm not going to play tug anymore. So just little examples like that. You just need to pay attention and read what your puppy is telling you. And that doesn't mean avoid everything. So, like, if a puppy was saying it didn't like something specific that I was trying to train, I wouldn't say, "Oh, well, I shouldn't do that anymore because the puppy doesn't like it." I would try to work out how can I adapt what I'm trying to train to make the puppy happier with the scenario. Meg, for example, like I've just told you lots of stories where she just wants to be away from me. So for her, being held for restrained recalls, because I do a lot of stuff where I restrained puppies to chase them, race them to things. And she does not really like that. So I've had to do a lot of fast games of where I'm briefly holding her, throwing something, and she goes, or getting her to offer to come into my hand rather than me grabbing for her. If I'm forcing her to do it, she's gonna hate it more. Whereas if I train her to offer to do it, she's gonna be much more likely to, want to engage in the game. But she still shows hesitation even now. Even now that she knows that she's coming in here, I'm gonna throw a toy, she's gonna get to run super fast. She hesitates briefly as she's coming in like, I'm not sure if I really want you to do that." And I might do a nose touch beforehand and then get her to come in, and she kind of forgets about it a little bit, but she definitely shows the pressure of that, and if I didn't handle that correctly, that could get worse. Mostly, it's just about knowing how much pressure of what we're doing can affect them. A lot of handling of dogs is a big thing that I find that puppies particularly, we pick them up a lot, we put them in things, we put them on lead, like, we grab them all the time and start to see like, if I have a puppy class, I start to see puppies not wanting to come back to handlers because they get manhandled so much. So rewarding them heaps for being handled can help to fix that, but also if they don't love the rewards enough, it doesn't necessarily fix it. So you just have to kind of come up with different solutions to problems like that.
Yeah, and my experience is similar, like, each puppy I have had, I haven't had that many, but each one has been wildly different from the last, so then I did learn different lessons and different approaches because they're all gonna
Yes.
have, yeah,
That's why
differences.
when you said it to start with, I'm like, "Oh, I have a million things probably," but, um, but one thing with tugging as well, I will add, because I think it's getting better, but it's definitely was a big agility thing, was to tap your puppy while you're tugging with them. Most dogs don't like it. Most dogs are jumping away from the handler or letting go of the tug and going, "I don't really want to be tapped, thank you." So the Aussie I have, he's quite happy for you to smack him around because Aussies are much more, in general, dogs that bump into other dogs when they play and stuff. But the others are more likely not to do that. So you just need to not be, it's not necessary. It doesn't actually make dogs enjoy it more. It doesn't really have any advantage for anything. So just stop tapping your dogs when you play tug and just play tug with them.
So are there any other areas of puppy raising that have made you think differently about agility and the way you approach training agility?
Yeah, I definitely have put more focus these days on the dogs being able to regulate their emotions. So I've had far too many dogs over the years that have gotten way so excited about agility that it's very hard for them. And I also need dogs around the house that aren't crazy lunatics. So I have raised puppies differently, as in, I've been very careful to teach them that you might be crazy right now and I need you to be able to come down quickly from that. And so having taught them the calm stuff first, obviously you cannot teach them calm stuff after they've already lost their minds. You have to teach them the calm skills while you first get them. So teaching them to be able to lie down on a bed or lie down quickly or sit quickly, and just take food quietly. That is something I teach pretty quickly so that so Meg, for example, gets really wound up when she has a toy and then she starts parkouring off my furniture and she's going to hurt herself. So I can quickly call her to me, ask her to lie down on a bed. And she does it fast, as long as I have food in my hand, obviously. But we go fast, we quickly, she lies down and she gets food and she's learnt to go from being crazy, lie down fast. So I think that skill when you have a crazy dog is very important. But again, I would adapt this if I didn't have a crazy dog and I needed a dog to be a little bit like more energetic. I wouldn't be doing that stuff with them. So it would be puppy dependent. I actually would like to have a dog that can be more out and about in the world and be a bit more better social skills has been a big priority for me with Meg. So I really want a dog I can just take out and about. like as a normal dog. And some are easier than others to teach that. And Meg is definitely easier to teach that. But so while I do want them to be able to just be out and about and be a normal dog, even though they're an agility dog, because sometimes we can put so much focus on them being these fun, fast agility dogs that we don't put priority into them being able to chill out and just be a normal dog. That was one thing that Keen taught me because he was like probably my seventh agility dog, so it wasn't like I wasn't experienced, but he was fun, he was fast, he was crazy, and I just always did recalls at the park, like play with toys at the park, and I never did like just be a normal dog. So he had no idea when he got let off lead, he would always be like flying back at me and going, "Oh my god, what are we doing?" Like just didn't know how to be a normal dog and sniff the ground. So since him, I've prioritized that for sure. Can you just go to the park and run around and sniff? And Meg still can't do that. She actually is a dog that loves running. So, but she's not in my face trying to get me to do something, which is the difference between her and Keen. She is just running, which is still a normal dog behavior. Whereas he was just always like at my feet going, oh my God, let's do something. So I do think that dogs need to learn to be normal dogs. When we're training them just for agility, we can forget that sometimes.
I've had a similar experience, like I said, with my most recent puppy, because the thing that like you really come to realize is, they might be able to do agility and they might be really good at it, but if they can't do anything else, then that's not even what we want, because we can't live with them easily, or they can't even enjoy things other than perhaps this one thing, and it's just like a really it's shallow, so it's not something that you really want in the end, and you might not realize it till you're in it, and then you're like, "Oh, wait, this isn't what I want," because I want them
Yes.
to like the sport, but I want them to also be a happy dog.
Yes, and the agility is such a small portion, or should be. You certainly shouldn't be doing agility every day, which I know some people do, but personally, I think agility is like a 3 times a week thing that you should be doing, and they need to know how to be a normal dog for the rest of that time, right? So, that's kind of an important thing for me.
Yeah, and I mean, when we're saying it, it seems really obvious, and there'll probably be people going like, "Well, sure," but
Well, of
I
course,
do I
yeah.
do want to acknowledge that when, like, I'm empathetic, because when you're in it, it isn't just like a black and white. Like, humans aren't just as we're also complex like dogs, so it isn't just something that's just like necessarily always obvious.
And I really love a dog that loves agility, and Keen was a dog that loved it, so it kind of fed into my kind of, like, I didn't see that other side of it where he loved it so much that he was trying to kill himself doing it. Like, he actually was very dangerous when he started actually doing proper agility, and you kind of can't see that when they're a puppy because they're not doing obstacles, they're just going and chasing a toy, and all of that's fun and stuff, and so you don't kind of know until it's too late what sort of, like, dog you've ended up with, and, so I'm kinda conscious of paying attention to how they do everyday things. Like I said before, Meg will run with a toy and bash into the wall. Like, she literally just runs and slams into a wall. Now, that is me telling me that she's not very safe for herself naturally when she's a bit wound up. So that means I need to teach her how to be safe as much as I can. And I didn't kind of know that with King when I started. So I do. I mean, he taught me tons of stuff that was very valuable, but it was very difficult. And it was, when you love agility and you love dogs that are fast in agility and that's all you see, your puppy's gonna be really cool at that, and then it all falls apart when you when you get there and go, "Oh, yes, he really loves it, but too much." So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I had a similar experience, but it's not that my dog had the physical side where, like, just barging through stuff. Like, she's actually quite body aware in the sense that she has self-preservation, and her problem
yeah.
was more emotional in that she had too much self-preservation. I would describe it as like paranoia. She had this when she was doing agility, she had this high arousal, but it was like a positive way, and then when she was doing anything else, it was high arousal but in a negative way, like this paranoia vibe. And like
Ah,
that was me realizing over time, like, where is the low arousal in your life? You need to have a
yes,
balance, and it's
yes,
not always about some dogs, yeah, it's throwing themselves physically at stuff, and for her, it wasn't so much that, it was just, like, feeling of anxiety that there was gonna be something around the corner or something, like, there was just this
yes.
it's hard to explain it, but it was this emotional side that was new to me, and I was like, "Oh, I need to, like, think about this differently."
Yeah, and with Keen, I learned a lot of the stuff about, you need to do like chewing things and kongs and stuff like that, which I didn't kind of think. Oh, you get paranoid about bones, so you stop doing bones because they're going to break their teeth, and then it's like, oh, but then they're not getting this thing that they actually need, which Meg is showing. Like she gets goat horns all the time because she just chews, 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 and that's part of her trying to regulate her craziness. Is she's got to chew something. So yeah, all those side of things are helpful for from puppyhood. Teach them how to snuffle mat, how to chew something, lick a Kong, all that sort of stuff is kind of very helpful for. Which again, some people might say, yeah, duh, but just kind of wasn't something I did early on. And you know, with Keen, I learnt lots more about how to teach them to be dogs as well as agility dogs.
I think it's always great to relearn enrichment. That was a massive piece for my dog Topaz as well. Like she needed the enrichment at home to meet the general needs to then be able to have, the ability to switch on the high arousal and switch it off when needed, when she could come down and chew something is the same. She was a big chewer. Like, so it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, enrichment is a massive one that is, and yeah, it is maybe duh sometimes, and then other times you're like, I didn't think of that way, and it's useful to hear other people's techniques and what they've tried and so on.
The other thing is that every dog is different. So I would give a frozen licky bowl to Keen, and he would try to smash it on the ground like a lunatic to break it open to get the stuff out. And so he wasn't soothing him at all because he was just trying to destroy it like a lunatic. So everything is dog dependent as to what is actually going to be soothing and helpful.
Absolutely. So I guess if you could sort of summarize, what would be something that you would say, like one thing you'd say to agility handlers about raising their next puppy? They've got this chance to have some forethought, not everything is in hindsight. So what would you say?
So it is to pay attention to your dog's personality and to actually try to work with them rather than against them. So we have often we have agility, ways we train things, and we're told by this, that, or, whatever person, including me. I tell people how to do things all the time. But if the dog isn't enjoying it or liking it, then you need to adapt. Otherwise, you're just going to be poisoning your relationship with them. So you need to be flexible in changing. That's the main thing. Changing what you're doing, adapting, trying to work with the dog, work with what they want to do naturally as much as possible, not fighting against what they do naturally, but also kind of paying attention to the things that are going to be not as useful and trying to train them to be a little bit better. Using Meg's retrieve training as an example. When I'm training her, she spends a lot of time running with a toy. Rah, 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 like growl, like a fun little growling, I'm running with a toy, which is a stress relief thing. And so it's helpful, but it actually can tire them out too much. So you don't get much done in a training session because they spend too much time running around. And then the other thing is it means that the reinforcement isn't as much with you, it's more off on their own. So trying to find ways to get them to want to come back and interact with you more, but without trying to force the issue that would actually poison it and make it worse.
And that's great advice. And you have programs available for people who might want to get more from you for puppy training through Red Dog Agility. So can you tell people how they might be able to get involved?
Yeah, so I currently have Red Dog Squad. That's a monthly subscription and there's no like minimum time for it. So you can sign up and decide it's not for you and unsubscribe. But you get for $20 a month, you get access to every course I have online. And then I have a Facebook group where I'm constantly adding little training bits and pieces with the dogs. And currently Meg's puppy diary is being added to in there as I work through things with her on the online platform. I have a Meg's puppy diary, so that has tons of stuff that I'm doing with her, and you can get video feedback. So not that I would want to be sitting down and watching hours of someone for $20 a month, but because hardly anyone does it, I've kept it pretty cheap because I was pretty sure people are pretty slack with doing video feedback. So I thought I'll keep it cheap and people can choose whether they want to use it or not. I wish more would because then I can kind of help guide people on what direction they need to move. But I understand people don't want to take video and upload it and stuff. But you can get video feedback on exercises as well, on little tips on what way to head to fix a problem you're having. So you might have a problem with the contact or anything, and I can kind of guide you what part of my online learning you could go to fix the problem, or give you exercises to help as well. I also do fitness consults for people, so it's an individual consult. So I get to see exactly what your dog looks like, what they need. It's usually better if you've had chiropractor or osteopath or something that treats your dog, that I get some info about any problems that they have. But we can do video consults, and you get a full program that's got video links and everything on the exercises to do, and we can work on trying to make your dog nice and fit and strong for agility.
So if you're listening and you have a new puppy on the horizon, it might be a good option for looking at Meg's puppy diary for tips and tricks for future.
Yes, I just had one of the Red Dog Squad people. She was getting a puppy, and so she got stuck into like watching a lot of the lessons before she got the puppy. So prepare herself, kind of what she wanted to be ready to do. So that was good.
Yeah, and I think also you might be better off doing it before, because when you get the puppy, you might suddenly get overwhelmed.
You're so busy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that is true.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I've really enjoyed this discussion and I really appreciate it. And hopefully, maybe in the future, we can have you back.
Thanks so much, Grace. I loved it.
This has been Flat Out Agility. Be kind to dogs.